Thanks, Philip. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for hanging around. This is the kind of aperitif now, just before you're going to be released for lunch. But it is a pretty important session. I'm just going to give you a bit of context before I introduce the other panelists. Tourism growth across the Middle East, North African region has been phenomenal over the last 20 years or so, and particularly in the GCC. The figures that have come out for Dubai are amazing. We've heard about, it really only started about 20 years ago. It's up to 14 million visitors last year. But nonetheless, it's been a fairly generic product on the whole, in most places. I'll put Egypt to one side because of the pyramids, but fairly generic sun, sea, sand shopping product. We've heard about the fact that you go to the hotels and you'll find an Italian and a Japanese restaurant, but it hasn't been so much authenticity played to date. Now, if you look at it, most governments here have historically sort of considered tourism as a good driver of growth for GDP and of income for their countries. Right now, it's become pretty imperative for many of the countries, and you are seeing people publishing their 2020 or 2030 visions of tourism growth. And if you aggregate all those together across the region, you're looking at nearly 50% or more growth in visitor numbers into this region over the next 4 to 5 years. That's a phenomenal number of people that have got to come into the region. And I guess the question is, what's going to bring them here, and what's going to make them stay, and what's going to make them come back? And I think the topic of this session is to kind of consider what is being developed, what are those differentiated products that are going to be launched or have been launched that are going to secure, each of the countries in the region their position to achieve that growth. And to join me on the stage today, we've got people representing 3 of the key countries in the region. But first of all, I'd like to invite Klaus onto the stage. Klaus is the VP of Hospitality and Retail at Dubai Parks and Resorts, and he'll have a great thing to say about how that's been developed. I'd like to invite Jerad, who is at the Tourism and Development Agency in Bahrain, and has had quite a lot of experience of a number of other countries. And finally, Salim from a similar agency in Morocco, SMIT. Thank you, gentlemen. So, Klaus, I'm going to start with you, because just interestingly, a couple of the other panels and the other thing has said, let's what's missing in this region is it's the reality, it's the authenticity. Keep it real. Does Dubai keep it real? As far as I can see, we're dealing here in fantasy and looking at the massive investment in the theme parks and other attractions in the next, or has been over the next few years, but also launching this year, and looking at what happened in 2010 when nothing really got off the ground. What's going to make that tourism numbers drive from 14 to 20 million as predicted? What's the secret sauce that you're going to have in Dubai Parks and Resorts?
Thank you so much. I think it's exactly what you said. It's about fantasies, right? To create a new 360-degree organic destination which we do not currently have. And we have this business model in some parts of the world. If you take Disney in Orlando, in Paris, in Hong Kong, or upcoming now Shanghai. And I think that's exactly what we are creating right now. It's from A to Z, a destination where you can have fun, a tourist destination with your family. You can shop, you can dine, you can stay. And this combined with high valuable IPs, where everybody really, really likes to come and see and experience. That's, to us, as Dubai Parks and Resorts, the next best thing. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just have a thought about Bahrain. It's been a reasonably challenging few years on the sort of geopolitical front, but I think we feel that we've got over that. You're brilliantly strategically located, alongside one of the richest and most populous countries here in the region. You did historically have the main carrier into the region. You recently relaunched your branding for your agency. What's Bahrain going to do next that's going to differentiate itself? What's your hook for the next, to drive your vision of growth over the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Bahrain is an interesting market. A lot of people know Bahrain for a lot of different reasons, and I think one of the things that we find very consistently is that people really don't know Bahrain. both from a development standpoint, from an offering standpoint, and so forth. And we find this to be true as we go out and we engage with the primary source markets that Bahrain is focusing on. You know, last year we had an 11% increase in our tourism arrivals, up to 11.6 million. And out of those 11.6 million, about 10 million, just under 10 million of those people came across the causeway. So the fact that we're a drive destination for one of the biggest, or what's the biggest economy within the region, certainly helps us. You know, the focus that Bahrain has taken, and I work for the Economic Development Board, so we're more of the product development, and then we have recently launched the Tourism Authority, which is the demand development. And what we've focused on is to make sure that we continue to build products and services in Bahrain that helps us convert those day travelers into overnight guests. We have a huge opportunity to continue to service the markets, the source markets that are already coming to Bahrain, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar to a certain extent. But we also have an opportunity to explore more source markets. You know, the source markets that we have not yet even tapped into for several different reasons, and a lot of it is because of the activities that have been going on over the last few years since 2011, have been put behind us for the most part. And now it's time to really focus on those new source markets. We have 70 flights a week to India, for example. There's great air service, air connectivity to that market. The Tourism Authority is opening representation offices in source markets that we're going to start focusing on, where we do have that direct airlift. But you know, the product development in Bahrain continues to be very strong. You know, we've got Anantara, One and Only, the Address Resorts, Vita Resorts that are being built, the Fairmont Resort. Al Shaya and their local investors is building the avenues, so it's the enclosed avenue concept that they have in Kuwait that's being built across from the Four Seasons. So there's $1 billion going into our new airport as well. There's no restriction really in the development of the tourism sector there now. It's a small market, so it's scalable. You know, it's nothing to compare to a Dubai or UAE. And I think every destination within the Gulf countries has to carve out their own niche, carve out their own presence in the market.
So if you were coming to a dinner party at my house with a number of English people who don't know the region at all, how are you going to sell Bahrain versus Abu Dhabi or Dubai or Qatar? Because you've mentioned hotel resorts, but they all sit in all the other ones as well. So what's going to be your differentiation? Well,
you know, our first point of reference is the fact that Bahrain has 4,000 years of documented history. You know, we have 2 UNESCO sites that sit in Bahrain. The culture and heritage that are in Bahrain are truly unmatched in the Gulf countries. You know, we talk about Bahrain being an authentic Arabic experience. You see that in our new brand, and actually we call it a new brand, and a lot of people have said, oh, it's great to see that you've relaunched a tourism brand for Bahrain, but there's no relaunch, it's a launch. We've never had a tourism brand to speak of in Bahrain. So the simple fact that we have a presence now from an identification standpoint is a huge step for us. But the brand itself, it's a signature brand. It's a human signature brand, and that's how it's been designed to talk about the authenticness of Bahrain. You come out of an airport in Bahrain, chances are you're going to get into a taxi that's driven by a Bahraini. You go to a shop, you go to a restaurant, you go to a hotel, Bahrainis are part of the engaged community. So that's the warmth and that's the special aspect of Bahrain that's really unique.
And that's when we talked about this yesterday. You know, we sort of looked at the parallel of Oman, and I think that's been always a challenge in the UAE, and I think they talked about it in the last session, is that you know, the population here is sort of kind of overwhelmed a bit by the expats. So for a visitor to get that real experience, it's quite hard to find because there aren't so many to find them. But you have, if you're saying your taxi drivers and everyone are locals, then you're getting that experience. Yeah. Just now moving even further west and into Morocco. I guess Morocco is, you know, blessed with so many natural assets, and we were talking about before about how really the success in creating tourism products is to work with what you've got, and you're putting a tremendous amount of effort in Morocco now into your tourism services and products. Salim, give us a bit of a heads up as to what that looks like.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, thanks, Philip, for that. We used to work in Morocco under a framework called Vision 2010 up until 2010, and the main priority at then was to build the bedding capacity. So our priority was not really at that time to build a brand, but to build like really the facility and the bedding capacity in order to welcome tourists from Europe. And I would say the strategy back then was just to say, well, listen, we are like just 15 kilometers away from Spain, right? When you're up north in Morocco, in Tangier, for instance, you can have Spain at sight, like you can actually see it. So it's very close. And we say, well, we have the same beaches, we have the same sun, we have the same landscapes. Well, let's build the hotel capacity, and then tourists will come over just as they come to Spain or France. And that up until 2013, that worked pretty well, like because there was quite a short bedding capacity. But now, as we build the bedding capacity, we've noticed for the last few years that we needed to come up with a real tourism development strategy in order to differentiate ourselves from other countries in the region. And like in the Mediterranean area, there are a lot of countries around offering the same product with hotels, beach resorts, and this sort of things. And yeah, for us, it's crucial for us to differentiate ourselves. And I think for the strategy that we're putting in place, nature and cultural components are very important. We need to not to appear as a second choice destinations compared to countries such as Spain or Italy or France. And keeping this in mind, that's how we understand that. That helps us understand the successes as well as the failures in Morocco over the last few years. We have had resorts such as Dakhla, for instance, in the south of Morocco, where the ocean meets the deserts, and that's it's based on an ecological friendly resorts, and it has known a lot of success over the last few years. We have a beach resort called Tarazout, for instance, and we've branded it as a surf destination with a lot of sport components as well as nature activities, and that has worked a lot. On the other hand, like we have resorts such as Saïdia in the north of Morocco, which has not achieved the results that we were hoping in the beginning, and that's probably because also in the Saïdia is a resort in the Mediterranean with very nice beach, very nice weather, but then who you find in front of you,
so you're learning your lessons from the history and focusing on
exactly. And I really believe in that resort now in Tarazout or even in Dakhla and Essaouira, because we've branded it in a manner that other countries just can't do the same as we do in the region. We are the only country south of the Mediterranean who has an exposure on the Atlantic Ocean, and therefore for us that's competitive advantage for us. Definitely.
Excellent. Well, and you're blessed with that. So coming back to Klaus, to the UAE or to Dubai in particular, and clearly a few years ago, many plans for these parks, and they never took off. Miras and now Dubai Parks and Resorts have kind of bet big. Not only just the 3 parks that are being built right now, but there's another one announced for a few years' time, and there's other parts. What's going to make this work now? What's happened in the country, or what are all the other enablers that, I think we were talking about it on the other panels about the destination, but it is creating a destination, isn't it? You can't just have a one-off product and that be it. What's happened here that's really giving us confidence that this is going to be a great success?
It's a very good question, and it's quite interesting. I mean, I for myself have 30 years of hotel operator experience behind me, and it was a complete new identity for me to understand how does a theme park hotel works in comparison to other destinations. It's first on the operating side, it's completely different, but also the integration is completely different. If you have a day park where you walk in the morning and you go in the afternoon, it is a great experience for the community, but it necessarily would not attract too many people into Dubai unless you have a critical mass of several day parks within the UAE or Dubai. Now what the difference is with us is we create a basic destination where you have the access to 3 theme parks, Motion Gate, Bollywood, Legoland, as well as a water park, Legoland Water Park, combined with a dining destination where you have to walk through in order to get to the theme parks with hotels in the center of that destination. So all of a sudden you're looking at the captured audience who can experience over several days, it's over 106 rides and attractions. You need to have several days to explore that. And then you have that critical mass, you have that organic created destination, and we believe that that's really the next best thing to happen in Dubai, specifically in Dubai. We have iconic buildings, we have beaches, we have shopping malls, we have the airlift, we have a lot of things what all the international destinations have, but we always fell a bit short on the family getaway in regards to theme parks.
Yeah, I think it's been highlighted in the interview. Who've seen the most recent figures for the last quarter. The average length of stay has declined slightly in Dubai, and so it is kind of critical that there is more things for people to do and to keep them together. I think one of the things that we were discussing, I don't know if you observed this, it's come out in the conference a few times, is are we talking about just Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah and Abu Dhabi and the other Emirates together, or is it do you see this as much more of a Emirates-wide?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are one country with the UAE, and we believe as more day parks are popping up within the UAE, as better it is for the destination, clearly, no question asked. And we see the same happening in Orlando, right?
Yes.
It's not all Disney, there's Universal, there's some other really key brands in regards to the theme park world, and it works. So it should work as well here. If you heard some of the panels early on, and you have the numbers as well, within a 3 hours flight distance, you have 1/3 of the population living here, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of source markets we can tap into.
We'll just put that into context. Orlando, 50 years ago, was just sort of a no-name city on the coast. It now has 70 million visits to theme parks, maybe 55 to 60 million people, and it's marketed to the outside world as a combined destination. Sure, Disney and Universal probably compete ferociously on the ground, but to us as a visitor, you're going to Orlando. Now, I think it's come up this week, so it's been very, very topical. But clearly, the biggest country in the GCC hasn't been open to tourism other than to religious tourism. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia. I know, Jerad, you used to advise the tourism agency in Saudi Arabia. Given they have recognised that having this diversification, trying to attract even further income. Clearly, they get a lot already from the religious tourism. But what do you think from the inside? Do you think they're going to have to work on to actually make the vision a reality?
Sure. I did spend a fair bit of time in Riyadh working with the Saudi Commission for Tourism in some different capacities, and I think that I obviously can't speak for them, but their focus certainly within tourism. They have a lot of passion for tourism. Religious tourism is well known as their primary inbound influence within tourism, and that's where the biggest growth is, including Mecca, Medina, and Jeddah, and everywhere. In other words, with hotel expansion, Riyadh has a massive influx of new product when it comes to hotels as well. And there's different approaches, obviously, that those markets are going to take. The western part of the country is still going to focus on the religious tourism, and certainly, Prince Sultan is trying to focus on products that get people to stay within the country, not just to come for tourism purposes, but to extend their stay and see some of the other things that Saudi has to offer. And I think it's well known, at least for people who live in the region, there is actually a lot to see in Saudi Arabia when it comes to history. We were talking about the extension of the carvings of Petra being down on the western part of Saudi Arabia, but there's a lot of history there that I think people would really like to see. And if Saudi Arabia continues to focus on tourism, they have a huge opportunity to bring visitors in to see those experiences. Riyadh, of course, is as the capital is focusing on business tourism. MICE is certainly a big focus for them. The products that are coming into the market are certainly built to cater to the MICE sector. But domestic tourism is still the biggest opportunity I think that Saudi sees for itself. They're trying to keep more people within the country, taking advantage of everything that the country has to offer by building better hotel products, by building resort products that will cater to the Saudi families for sure.
Hopefully they'll still come to Bahrain as well.
Inshallah.
We talk about I've never been, but some of the sites apparently in Saudi Arabia are unbelievable. And if you've ever been to Petra, they've got something very equivalent. And Celine, we were talking about kind of the heritage sites in Morocco, and you're really focusing on sort of activating those. What are you doing to activate those? Because it is quite a hard sell just to have people just coming to see a heritage site. It sounds great, it looks good on the pictures, but can you, to try and make revenue and money out of it is quite challenging. So what sort of lessons have you, or what are you applying in Morocco to activate your heritage sites?
There's quite a large program now going on in Morocco called MNQ program, which stands for Medinati and Qaryati. It's a program which aims to refurbish all the historical and archaeological sites in Morocco. As you said, it's not sufficient to have exceptional sites in place just to welcome tourists, and there are some refurbishments to put in place. There's some infrastructure as well, and I mentioned to you yesterday, I think we talked about sites just as Volubilis, for instance. It's not very well known, but from an archaeological point of view, it's one of the most important Roman ancient sites outside of Italy, in the Mediterranean area. So here, the Moroccan government is putting a lot of efforts into preparing these sites to welcome tourists, and you also asked me about whether we had some references on this topic, and I thought about it overnight, and I thought about this Stonehenge, for instance, and you're English, right? So you must be knowing that. It's probably a fantastic archaeological sites, but then it's really impressive how the English people, England has put all in place to really transform this archaeological sites into a really great business opportunity. And then all the region, all around, all the cities around have benefited from this place. And in Morocco, we intend to do the same thing. There's not much funding involved in this. I mean, it does not take billions of trillions of dollars to put infrastructure around. Just the lightning to allow, for instance, for night visits, or proper roads and easy access. So we're putting that in place, and hopefully there will be some gains over it. And there are all the Medinas also, these medieval towns and castles which are important to us. We have 7 Medinas which are classified as World Heritage by UNESCO. So these are tremendous assets.
And you mentioned one thing, thankfully for Klaus, you're fully funded. There's, you've got the money to launch, and you're listed on the Dubai Stock Exchange. But you gentlemen, you're out there seeking funding. How are you finding the market? In each of, is there interest in your kind of tourism products?
There is. We're as an investment promotional agency, a lot of what we do is focus on FDI. But in tourism, we're big believers that the Bahraini dinar spends as well as the Saudi riyal. And there's no shortage of people who are interested in investing in the tourism sector, as long as we can get the product right and make sure that we can make the feasibility make sense. So we're blessed from the standpoint that there is a proven track record, a lot of it because of what's happened here in the UAE. There's a lot of confidence in investing in the tourism sector. For Bahrain, we're fortunate from the standpoint that we don't have a lack of necessarily interested investors. It's just making sure that we get the product right for them. And our goal is to make sure that when we create an island or as a tourism destination, that it's sustainable, unique, and diversified. That's our focus.
And Morocco, given, I think one of the things we also have talked about quite a lot about in the conference is around security, and you've had a few things on your doorstep, but not in Morocco itself. But are you finding that's causing some challenges in persuading investors, or is a country risk that's been applied? We've talked about it on the debt funding and the returns people are expecting, putting projects out of reach of some investments?
Yeah, obviously there are challenges over this. I mean, the region has known quite important events over the last few years, and this impacted us into approaching, I would say, investors which are not necessarily familiar with Morocco. So I know investors from the GCC or even from Europe, from France and Spain. They're able to make differences between Morocco and other countries in the region. However, from an American perspective, or from a Chinese perspective, from a Russian perspective, this is a different story, because these people are I would say, farther. So when you talk to them about Morocco, they see it as MENA region. So there are associations in there that that have an impact on us. Over the next few years, I think the challenges for us will be to really promote an image about Morocco that is, a stable country and ready to welcome investors. However, I would say that also in order to attract Russians, there's like a lot of promotion to do there.
Yeah. Okay, so just as we're running out of time, so I'll just kind of wrap up with some observations. Is that I guess what's clearly sort of lesson coming out of this very clearly, and you'll probably talk to many of the other countries and their tourism agencies or the private developers there, is to find some kind of differentiation. You can't all be chasing the same product, trying to target the same market, and every country's kind of got something uniquely different that you've got to focus on. So, it may be the localization is absolutely imperative. It may be for Dubai, huge numbers already. It's kind of got to offer something even more big and glamorous. I think one of the keys, though, that we're picking up is that this has got to be coordinated. So there's no single developer can do it all on his own. No single agency can do it on its own. There's got to be this kind of linkage. Why these visions are important, and I think Haytham said it on the Ras Al Khaimah thing. They've got to be organic as well. But nonetheless, if everybody's pulling in the same direction, and it clearly helps. And you've seen it in Dubai, the RTA and the municipality and everyone is behind making sure that these parks aren't just sort of sitting there in the desert looking very beautiful, but nobody can get there. That's kind of absolutely critical. And the more you can make it real, and the more you can have the local population involved in the activities. I know in Dubai Parks you're training many Emiratis. I think you've sent them to Los Angeles and to Orlando to be trained, so that when you do go to the parks, it isn't a complete isolation from the country of origin. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed. Yeah. Probably I haven't taken so many questions, but clearly we're all around, so please feel free to come and pick it up with us directly. So if you'll join me in thanking my panelists for their time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.